This is Your Bird Story, a broadcast of bird stories told by everyday people about their interactions and relationships with wild birds in cities. I'm your host, Georgia Silvera Seamans. I'm excited to be here with Katie, and I'm going to ask her to make her introductions.
All right, so my name is Katie Leung. Currently, I am the volunteer and outreach coordinator with Riverkeeper. Before that, I was a field technician with the New York City Parks Wildlife Unit. My main concentration was on urban birds of prey and studying their breeding behaviors during the breeding and nesting season, as well as helping city agencies to make informed decisions on rodent management so that they can lessen secondary rodenticide poisoning to raptors.
Can you provide more detail about the secondary impacts to raptors of setting poison out for rodents?
So, of course, rodenticide is meant to control the rodent population. And once they do consume the rodenticide, it actually just stays in their system for about between 1 and 2 weeks. So they don't immediately succumb to that. So unfortunately, of course, they do feel pain and hemorrhaging during the final 1 to 2 weeks that the poison is in them. However, they are still able to walk out and about. And they can still be exposed to potential predators, some being raptors, primarily the red-tailed hawk, and rats especially are the number one prey item for red-tailed hawks. So if a red-tailed hawk does see a wandering and probably disoriented rat, then that's still potential prey for them. So if a hawk snatches a rat, then consumes it, then the hawk would unfortunately become poisoned itself. So that is what we call secondary poisoning. The hawk can probably suffer the same symptoms that the rat would, such as internal bleeding, hemorrhaging. And you could definitely tell that a hawk is entirely ill, disoriented, one eye closed or both eyes closed and drooping, looking lethargic. So yeah, that's how we can tell if a red-tailed hawk does consume a poisoned rat.
Is it fair to say that your affinity for raptors came with your previous role, or did you have a love of raptors and then that was strengthened during your role?
I was actually placed on the Raptor project. I was the one out of my team that was selected for the Raptor project. I think that it was because I have done minimal work working with raptors when my employers were looking at my resume. It was not too much raptor work. I was in Albany in the prior position, and I was just doing a winter raptor survey. So it was pretty fun, but it was not the substantial part of my work. But I've always loved raptors. They have always been my favorite bird group, and I can never select which really is my favorite raptor. I would say that it kind of changes every single year because 1 year it's the Eastern Screech-Owl, another year it's the red-tailed hawk, another year it's the Osprey. Can't really decide. I think out of all the urban species, I felt very fortunate to have worked directly with raptors.
Have you always had a love for birds? Is this something that developed when you were a child, or is this something that you fell into and cultivated as an adult?
Yeah, it's something that I fell into and cultivated as an adult. I would say that my love for birds grew when I was in my post-undergrad internships, because I was always a mammals person, actually. I thought that I would actually go into this career studying large mammals, so your charismatic megafauna. I just left everything up to chance. I was very open to whatever opportunity would come to me. Yeah, it just so happened that I don't necessarily have in the parks position a project primarily focusing on mammals at first. just so happened that I ended up with something about raptors. So that was like still very exciting to me. I'm a huge fan of predators. So yeah. Predatory animals are pretty much like my thing.
Why is that? What dimension of them are you drawn to?
Ever since I was a kid, I'll say this, that I was very fascinated by predators. Whenever I saw something on TV, like say a lion trying to catch a zebra, like I was always rooting for the lion. I just got very excited. It was ever since I was like 2 or 3. I mean, there was like one day in which my cousin like sat me in front of the TV and he let me watch like this lion chasing this zebra, and I was very excited. And my other cousin came in and she was like, don't let her watch this. What are you doing? and he was like, she likes it. Yeah, I've always had an affinity for predators. And also like back then I was so very into sharks and whales and dolphins, so all of which I believe are predatory animals. I'm not sure. Herbivorous whale, I don't think. Yeah, so yeah.
I know that you're in Westchester right now, but you grew up in the 5 boroughs of New York City. And so I would love to hear from you what you've noticed in terms of differences in landscape and differences in bird species.
Yeah, so I think I'll start with bird species and say that I haven't really seen too many differences so far. I would say that the bird species pretty uniform between the city and Westchester so far from what I see. I haven't really gone out to bird all that much in Westchester yet, so I'm going to be honest about that. I still notice, your usual backyard birds and notice turkey vultures in terms of raptors. I've noticed turkey vultures, red-tailed hawks. I think I might have seen a Cooper's hawk, and also that there are peregrine falcons. I'm not exactly sure where they are, but yeah, I know that they're there. In terms of landscape, I would say that Westchester is more wooded. There's definitely more woodland. I mean, it also does have like a diversity of habitats, just like how the city does. It does have wetlands. It does have, yeah, marshy areas. I think you have like more access to Hudson River, I think, which is pretty much like where my focus lies right now. Much of my life, I was on Staten Island, and it's not necessarily like the Hudson River that we can access. It's the Arthur Kill, and you don't want to go into the Arthur Kill. I'm not sure what's in there. Could be like some contaminants. Like I'm just thinking about like the ship graveyard that we have. That's actually right near me. I'm actually in Staten Island right now. I'm back at my parents. You look in the ship graveyard, and that's right on the Arthur Kill, and you see stuff like kind of like accumulating in there. So you definitely don't want to go in there. I think like out of any view that I've seen, like I'm definitely more drawn to the Hudson River. It's a beautiful estuary. It's vast. I mean, underneath, like there is just so much that like people don't know about. I mean, we still have sturgeon. We still have all these iconic fish. Also, like the striped bass. Practically, like all of the iconic Hudson River species are what my current organization at Riverkeeper are concentrating on trying to protect.
Add eagles to that list.
Yeah, I'll also say this. I mean, eagles have been spotted off of Riverside Park. They're flying above the Hudson River in between where, Jersey is and where Riverside Park is. I think on the Jersey side, it's Palisades, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, it's definitely super exciting to be seeing them. Yeah, actually, like just last month, I was in a car with my partner and we saw a bald eagle just flying over. We just got off of George Washington Bridge, and then we were on the highway like towards Riverside. So it was very, very exciting.
I think people, because of I'll use your word, this sort of iconic nature of the eagle in the story of the US, I think people are always so surprised and shocked. Eagles as part of an urban landscape.
I'm guessing that you also know about the bald eagle hacking project that happened a couple of decades ago now. Yeah, so the hacking project that happened in Woodhill Park. And I forgot how many individual eaglets fledged, but it was a successful project. I'm just like speculating here, but it could be that the eagles that we're seeing were the individuals that fledged. I wouldn't be surprised if that were the case.
I'll look up that project and put a link in the show notes. You said you haven't gone bird watching in Westchester yet, and I'm curious about your birding practice. Are you a person that likes to go alone, in a group? Do you use binoculars or a camera? Like, how do you bird?
Yeah, so usually I do like to go alone and I do use binoculars. I used to carry around a camera and then I just decided that I just want to like, just be more in the moment. Yeah, just watch them really. And if anything, if like I wanted to like snap a cool photo, then I use the iPhone binoculars method. iPhone through the binoculars, and I have to say, I think I've gotten pretty good at it over the years. Because the first time I ever did that was back in 2015. I was actually like in Nebraska studying bison. I had a spotting scope, and then I used my iPhone to snap pictures through the spotting scope, and it worked really well. I just like developed that skill over the years and I think I got pretty good at it. I primarily look for raptors. No surprise. Yeah, I haven't really gone to like see any of the raptor nests after I went into my new position. But yeah, definitely like someday, like when I'm back here in the city and I want to like take a look at how they're all doing. Well, not all of them, how a few of them are doing because I don't have that time anymore. Yeah, it'll definitely be good to see them, see how they're doing.
Raptors are, I mean, partly because of their size and just behavior. For me, they seem much easier to view through binoculars versus, those warblers that are so fast and so active.
Warblers and sparrows are the most complicated to me to to identify. And yeah, I've actually didn't really put much of an effort to identify them. But yes, I do agree that raptors are the easiest to observe for sure. Yeah, they're big. So, I mean,
Yeah,
they can camouflage pretty well sometimes, I have to say. I'm pretty biased. So I think out of all the bird groups, like they're the most exciting to watch.
I will see a hawk, a red tail, fly into a tree, and then someone will ask me something, and I look away, and then I look back, and I know the hawk is still there, but then it takes a while to see the hawk.
Mhm.
Even though the bird is so large, you're right,
Mhm.
they really do camouflage well.
Oh yeah, they definitely do. Like if they can find like a good spot in like in the branches, then definitely good luck trying to find them.
Can you talk about how spending time noticing birds, going out birding has influenced your life?
I think that really helped me to be more in the present moment, like in those moments when I'm birding, because it's like you can totally look at, like, say, a common backyard bird. We definitely see them all the time, but you can look at one and just still observe what they're doing. It was not that I was expecting anything surprising from them. It was just like just watching them for them. It was just watching them how they are, like what they look like and stuff like that, and just appreciate that they're there. And of course, I also do the same thing for raptors. And also like being patient with observing their behaviors. They could be hiding in a nest and it might be like it'll take a little bit to actually see them. So if you just wait a little bit, something is bound to happen. But if not, and if you're like pressed for time, then yeah, you just come back to the area and see like what else is going on at some other point in the near future. It just really taught me to appreciate all of these, like all of this bird diversity that we have in the city. Yeah, so I think like my appreciation for birds like really grew like as I returned to New York City and going to parks and learning all about these different things about so many different birds. And it really does help that we have like huge birders in my team. They're definitely much more into birding than I am, to be completely honest. Like you hear like all of these different stories and you can tell like how passionate like these people are. They definitely want what's best for the birds. Also, of course, like enjoying them at the same time because like birding, I think especially like during the pandemic, it's like it really like grew. I saw that it really grew in popularity. Okay, yeah, definitely get more people out to do this thing. That's how you become more exposed to the nature of the city,
Mhm.
more exposed to the natural world, and growing that appreciation for them at the same time.
Thank you for that. I want to go back to the way you like to bird, and you say that you prefer to bird alone.
Mhm.
And I'm curious if you encountered any bias birding alone as a woman of color? Like, just curious about that.
I'll say that thankfully I've not really come across like too much opposition. The only thing that I've ever felt on edge about was during, the height of COVID. Unfortunately, as a result, we've seen like a heightened amount of anti-Asian hate crimes. This was especially like when I was still in parks, and before the pandemic, I was pretty okay. Like there were areas in which like I had to be a little more vigilant about, because like I don't know the areas, I don't know what might happen, I don't know the people here, so I definitely want to be like a little bit more on my toes, just keeping watch of the people around me. Like I'm usually the one who does go out alone, and I am like a small a small woman, and also a small woman of color. But yeah, I would say like still during the pandemic, during the anti-Asian hate crimes, which unfortunately are still occurring, I definitely felt a little bit more on edge going out. So I just want to like make sure that whichever areas that I go to, that they are more populated with people, like more open as well. But even that, like I also had in my head, like, okay, I mean, this can happen to anybody anywhere. It probably would not matter. Yeah, it was just definitely like a little hard for me to judge. And I also remember this one instance in which like I was in McNeil Park and I was watching the red-tailed hawknest that was there. And then I saw this elderly Asian man, and he was walking around carrying a golf club. This was like spring 2021. So with that, it was like, okay, I don't think that I would ever really see that. I've never seen that before. And I don't think that I would ever see that unless, the same as me, like very on edge. Because again, like it could happen anywhere, it could happen to anybody. It was like, and each time that like I went out to go birding, like I really had to just watch my back. I had my binoculars on. I would pick them up, then put them back down, look around, just so that I don't get blindsided. Should anything happen? I would say like out of anything that was like the most pressing to me. It was definitely during the height of COVID when I was still in parks.
Do you carry any of that vigilance with you through today? I mean, we're sort of out of that mass quarantine period, even though the sort of instances of anti-Asian hate are still high. I guess, how have you carried those experiences during the quarantine period through to today?
Yeah, I would say like, back, during the height of COVID, it was like I was definitely like the most anxious. That's like the most anxious that I've ever really been, especially being outdoors. I was also thinking to myself, like, this really isn't fair. Like, I really just want to be able to do my work and also enjoy the outdoors. But yeah, I think like now my job, it's now more office based than anything. So I don't really like go out too much anymore, like during work. It could be like partially because of that, like my anxiety has gone down a whole lot. And whenever I am out for work, I am also with somebody else, because the stuff that I do, it's now more group based or like colleague based. But yeah, I would say like if I am out alone anywhere else, like for, personal reasons, yeah, not non-professional reasons, then I still carry that vigilance with me. Because again, like I don't know if it could happen just about anywhere or anytime. Especially like as I'm seeing right now, like these crimes are still happening. I actually don't think that they're going down anytime soon. Unfortunately, it's something that I've been like really keeping up with. But I've actually also learned to not let that get to me either, because being anxious all the time is no fun. And of course, I know that like it does have to take a lot of work to to really get through that feeling. Like you do have to, as much as it sucks, like you really have to do like feel through it and work through it, like put in mechanisms so that you can like strengthen yourself better. So that's what I've pretty much done. So yeah, I've come to accept that, okay, these hate crimes are not something that I can control. However, I can control how I feel about it, how I feel about them, and think about what I can do to help all these situations. And I don't want to be like intimidated by thing. I don't want to live by fear. And so like I just have to like do what I have to do as a person who, wants to stay strong, who wants to, continue moving forward and seeing like what I can do to like better my community. So it really does help that being a woman of color in the environmental field, to me, that itself is empowering. Like back when I was only starting out, I didn't really think about that. But, just seeing how much of a ways I've really come, that's empowering. I have done a lot of work. So yeah, like I definitely want to give myself credit for that, acknowledge that. So it took a long time. It takes a lot of work, but when you do realize you just notice like how rewarding it can really be.
Thank you so much for Katie for being open and for sharing these thoughts with me and with the listening audience of the podcast. Want to be able to do what you love without having to think about your safety, without having to be vigilant is, as you say, unfair. And it's a burden that no one should have to carry. I think there are groups of people who are sort of working through how to best remedy the situation, both from the naturalist side and then from the sort of socioeconomic side that drives some of the attacks. So I guess we'll see. But I just want to then spotlight something that you say. You've said that it's really important to be a woman of color in the environmental field and to sort of persist in that work and show up and be the face of what the environment looks like in the US. It's a really diverse space, and we should keep it that way and keep expanding the circle of diversity.
I truly believe that outdoors is for anybody and everybody. If we're also able to like get more people out birding, or it may be birding or something else outdoors, then yeah, I'm definitely all for it. If we're able to like get more people involved in conservation too, that would be great. I mean, because like the environment it's what keeps us flourishing, what we do to the environment, that the environment does back to us. So I think if we can keep that, if we can like give back to the environment, then the environment will still continue to provide for us. That's how it works. It's a two-way street.
And with that, I'd really like to thank you for coming on and talking with us about your bird life in the city. Thanks so much, Katie.
Thank you very much, Georgia. Thank you for having me.
Hello, my name is Katie Leung, and I currently am in Staten Island, New York, my hometown, visiting my family and doing some birding at a local park that I've always grown up in, and also did some previous field work in when I was in New York City parks. Currently, I'm in Bloomingdale Park. As you probably just heard, there's a honk. There's actually an intersection at this part of the park where I'm at. But I'm also looking into a gated area where along with my coworker, I used to hop over to do some field work. So far, I'm overlooking a marshy area in the park, in which the majority of the park really is wooded, but there is this little marsh area. And usually I would see a great blue heron, but I'm not seeing that it is there right now. So as I was like walking here, I did see, your occasional backyard birds, such as American robins, and hearing some blue jays. Right now, the foliage is, I would say, a little past peak. There are still some trees that are still like, still has green, but everything else is either brown or losing their leaves. I can definitely see some differences between Staten Island and where I currently live in Westchester. Yeah, I'm still exploring some areas for birding in Westchester myself. And recently, I was at Untermeyer Park in Yonkers, where I saw one of my favorite birds, red-tailed hawk, and it was just like soar. It was just like diving right above the hill and going down. Mesmerizing to see. It's always mesmerizing to see. Happy to be here.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Your Bird Story. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you back here next month.